There's a house on the outskirts of town. You've probably seen it, the crumbling structure sitting in the distance, its silhouette always faintly visible through the fog of an early morning or the evening dusk. Most people avoid it. I suppose there's an unspoken agreement in town that the house is off limits, cursed even, and not just because of its dilapidated condition. People talk about it, whisper about the strange things that have happened there, the rumors that have grown over the years like ivy crawling up its walls. No one who ever lived there stayed for long. Everyone who passed through seemed to leave a piece of themselves behind. As kids, we used to dare each other to go near it, but none of us ever had the courage to actually set foot inside. It was just too eerie, too ominous. There was an energy about the place that made my skin crawl, and that was before I knew about the secrets hidden in its walls. To us, it was just the haunted house on the edge of town, nothing more. But curiosity has a way of gnawing at you. It waits for the right moment to strike when you're least expecting it, and it pulls you in before you even realize what's happening. I'd been back in town for a few weeks after years of being away. I had my reasons for coming back, some personal, some professional, but what I hadn't expected was to feel the pull of my childhood curiosity again. One afternoon, after a particularly long day of sifting through old paperwork at my new job, I found myself walking toward that house. I didn't plan to go there. It wasn't something I had thought about in years, but somehow, my feet were carrying me there as if on their own accord. The house had a different air about it now. It wasn't just decrepit, it was suffocating, like it had absorbed the very memories of everyone who had ever lived there. The windows were boarded up, and the front door was barely hanging on its hinges. But even in its ruin, there was a strange beauty to it, a haunted, forgotten kind of beauty. Something inside me urged me to go closer. I had no idea what I was looking for, but as I stood at the foot of the porch, my hand hovering over the doorknob, a sense of urgency washed over me. It was as though the house was calling me. Some unseen force beckoned me inside, but I hesitated. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the stories, or the fact that the house was now an abandoned relic of a past that didn't belong to me. But then something happened. I heard it. A faint sound, almost imperceptible like a creak. It was coming from inside the house, from somewhere above me. The attic, I realized. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Perhaps it was just the unsettling stillness of the place, or maybe the nagging feeling that something inside the house was waiting to be discovered. But it was that sound, that little creak, that sent me spiraling into a decision I wasn't ready for. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under my feet as I entered. The dust in the air hung thick, and the stale, musty smell filled my lungs. The house was cold. Too cold for a place that hadn't been lived in for years. My breath came out in small clouds, and I rubbed my arms to ward off the chill. I moved carefully through the rooms, the memories of my childhood flooding back in flashes. I had forgotten how the house felt, how the shadows seemed to take on a life of their own in certain corners, how the walls seemed to whisper if you listened closely enough. The house had always felt like it was alive in its own way, holding on to secrets that were far too big to be spoken. But none of this was what drew me up to the attic. It was the sound. I couldn't shake it. My heart raced as I moved up the staircase toward the attic door. The wood creaked under my weight, and as I reached for the doorknob, I paused. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my bones. The door swung open with a low groan, revealing the dark, forgotten space above. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I was making a mistake. But the pull to find out what was hidden in this house was too strong. I stepped inside. The attic was exactly as I had imagined it, a place suspended in time. It was filled with forgotten relics, old furniture covered in dust, boxes filled with things long abandoned, and cobwebs that seemed to stretch endlessly across the rafters. But there, in the far corner of the room, I saw something out of place. A small wooden chest, almost completely covered by a thick layer of dust, stood against the wall. It was old, carved with intricate designs that seemed to tell a story of their own. The lid was shut tight, and something about it drew me in. I didn't know why, but I felt that if I opened it, I would uncover something important, something that had been waiting for me for years. I approached the chest, my hands trembling slightly as I knelt down in front of it. There was no lock, just a small brass clasp. My fingers brushed over the surface, feeling the carvings that had been worn smooth over time. I was careful, not wanting to disturb whatever history had been left in this house, and then I opened it. Inside were letters, hundreds of them. Some were tied together with fraying twine, while others were scattered in a haphazard pile. They were old, yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible in places. I pulled out the first stack, and it didn't take long for me to realize that they were all addressed to someone named Evelyn. But the strange part was that the letters were all from different people. Some were written by men, others by women. Some were filled with declarations of love, others with apologies and regret, but one thing remained constant. Every letter seemed to tell a different version of the same story. They were confessions. The first letter I read was from a man named Charles. He confessed his love for Evelyn, pouring his heart into the page, his words tinged with sadness. "I've loved you from the first moment we met," he wrote, "but I've never been brave enough to tell you." The letter ended with a plea for her to come back to him, to give him a chance to make things right. The second letter was from a woman named Annabelle. Her words were angry, filled with betrayal. "How could you do this to me, Evelyn? After everything, how could you leave me behind for someone else?" As I read more letters, the pieces of the story began to form. It was clear that Evelyn had been a woman who had left a trail of broken hearts. Each letter spoke of a different relationship, a different person who had fallen for her, only to be left behind. But there was more. The last letter in the box was dated just a few months before I found it. It was different from the others, written in a rushed, frantic handwriting that seemed to shake with fear. It was from a man named James, and the letter was chilling. "I know you're still out there, Evelyn. I've been waiting for you. I know you'll come back to me. I know you'll return soon, and when you do, I'll be ready. I've been waiting for you in the attic." My heart skipped a beat. The letter was dated only a few months before I found it, and the words seemed to send a shiver down my spine. The attic. Was this some kind of joke? Or had this man really been waiting here all this time? The house creaked around me, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Something was wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The air in the attic felt thicker now, suffocating, as though the walls were closing in on me. I looked around, my eyes scanning the room, but there was nothing else in the attic, nothing that would explain the letter. It was just me and the remnants of a past long forgotten. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this house than I could understand. I stood up quickly, the chest falling shut with a loud thud, as though the house itself was responding to the discovery. My heart raced and I felt a chill run down my spine. What was I really dealing with here? I ran my fingers over the letters again, my mind racing. Had this house been the final resting place of someone's obsession? Or had Evelyn, whoever she was, truly been a part of something far darker than I could imagine? The letters all spoke of longing, of love unrequited, and of things left unsaid. But there was something about that last letter, about James's desperate words, that made me question everything. I needed answers. But what I found in the attic wasn't just the remnants of lost love. It was something much darker, something that would follow me long after I left that place. As I turned to leave, I heard it again, the creak. But this time it wasn't from above. It was coming from behind me, from the shadows that had been lurking in the corners of the room. And that was when I realized whatever had been waiting in this house, in this attic, had never left, and now neither could I. As I stood there in the attic, my breath caught in my chest. The creak I had heard earlier, this time it sounded closer. My body tensed, and I slowly turned my head, trying to adjust to the dim light, hoping to see nothing. The shadows stretched in unnatural ways across the attic, and the weight in the air seemed heavier than before. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. After all, I had been in this old house for far too long, and my imagination was likely running wild. The letters in the chest, the cryptic words about waiting in the attic, none of it made sense. It was just a coincidence, right? I didn't know how long I had been standing there in the silence, staring at the spot where I had heard the creak. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run out of that house, throw the letters back into the chest, and pretend like I had never discovered them. But the more I thought about it, the more the truth gnawed at me. What had really happened here? What was the secret that the house had held on to for so long? And why had it waited for me? The house seemed to be holding its breath, and I was holding mine. I slowly stepped toward the attic door, telling myself to leave, but my curiosity, my need for answers, kept me frozen. As my fingers brushed the handle of the attic door, I felt it again. The unmistakable sound of something shifting behind me, like a presence in the room. I quickly spun around, but there was nothing. Just shadows. My heart thudded in my chest, and I backed away from the door, my eyes scanning the attic. The silence was suffocating. But then, something in the corner of my eye caught my attention. A glimmer of light? Or was it a reflection? I didn't know. But whatever it was coming from the farthest corner of the room. It was a strange, metallic glint, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself drawn to it. My instincts told me to leave, to turn around and walk out of that attic, to never come back. But I couldn't. My curiosity was overpowering, and the mystery had become a part of me. I slowly made my way toward the corner, each step feeling heavier than the last. The shadows around me seemed to stretch longer, curling around my legs like tendrils, pulling me deeper into the dark. The metallic glint was brighter now, almost blinding, and when I reached the source, I saw it clearly. A small, tarnished key lay on the floor, half buried beneath a pile of old, forgotten boxes. It was small, simple, but the weight it held in my hand felt almost impossibly heavy. I didn't know why I picked it up, but I did. And as I held it in my palm, I felt an overwhelming sense of unease settle over me. It felt wrong. I didn't know what had opened, but there was no way I could walk away now. The house was alive with secrets and they were calling me. I couldn't just leave them behind. So I stood there, my hand wrapped tightly around the cold metal of the key, trying to figure out what to do next. Then it hit me. The chest, the one I had opened just moments ago, the one filled with letters, confessions, and desperation, the one letter that had sent a chill down my spine, the one that mentioned Evelyn and the attic, the letter from James. Could the key open it? I felt sick to my stomach, but I didn't hesitate. The chest was still where I had left it, sitting in the same corner of the room, untouched. My feet carried me over, and before I even realized what I was doing, I was kneeling down in front of it again. I looked at the chest and then at the key in my hand. They seemed to belong together somehow. I didn't know why I felt that way, but the feeling was undeniable. Slowly, I inserted the key into the lock. It clicked. The lid of the chest creaked open with a sound that echoed in the silence of the room, and I froze. For a moment, I thought I had heard something moving, something not quite right, but when I looked up, I saw nothing but the shadows and dust. With trembling hands, I pulled the chest open. Inside, there were more letters, more than I could count, stacked in neat piles and bound with twine. But beneath the letters, I saw something else, something I hadn't noticed before. It was a photograph, a picture of a woman, her face partially obscured by shadows. She was standing in front of a house, our house, or what had once been our house. I pulled the photo out carefully, my eyes scanning the image. The woman in the picture was striking, her eyes filled with an intense sadness that made my chest tighten. But there was something else, something even more unsettling. She was holding a letter in her hand. It was the same letter, the same paper, the same handwriting. I turned the photograph over, and my fingers brushed against a faded inscription written on the back. I never should have left you. I thought I could forget, but I can't. I've been waiting for you always. A cold chill ran down my spine. The woman in the picture was Evelyn, but this was not just a picture from the past. It was taken years ago, and yet her presence in the photo felt like it was staring directly at me, as if she were there with me now. The weight of the moment hit me with force. My heart was racing, and every inch of me screamed to stop, to run, to get out of the house. But I couldn't. I stared at the photograph, the inscription haunting me. Who had written this? Who had waited all these years for Evelyn to return? And why did this photo, this letter, feel so personal, like it was meant for me? I had to know. I had to understand. There was no turning back now. I reached into the chest again, pulling out more letters, reading each one. The handwriting was consistent, the same person writing over and over, confessing feelings, asking for forgiveness, begging for answers. But none of it made sense. Each letter was a plea for Evelyn's return, a promise that they had never stopped waiting. And the last one, the one that I had seen before, was the most chilling of all. I know you're still out there, Evelyn. I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting in the attic. As I read the last words, something in the house shifted. It was as if the air thickened, becoming almost suffocating. I looked around, but the attic seemed still. Yet the sensation of being watched, being waited on, was palpable. The space around me seemed to close in, the shadows growing darker, deeper. I wasn't alone. And then I heard it, a low distant creak. The sound of someone moving. It wasn't coming from the floor above me. No, it was coming from behind me, from the farthest corner of the room. I turned slowly and my breath caught in my throat as I saw something I wasn't prepared to see. A figure, a silhouette in the corner, just standing there, watching me. I couldn't breathe, my body froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It was Evelyn. But it wasn't just her image in the photograph. No, this was real, flesh and bone, standing in the corner of the attic, waiting. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She didn't move, she didn't speak, but I knew what I had to do. I had to run. But my legs wouldn't move. The silence was suffocating, pressing in on me, and the only thing I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, louder, faster, until I couldn't hear anything else. And then she stepped forward. The photograph, the letters, the attic, all of it made sense now, but the truth was far darker than I could have ever imagined. As she moved closer, the air grew colder, and I understood. Evelyn hadn't been waiting for someone to return. She had been waiting for me. The attic was no longer a place of forgotten memories. It was a place where secrets were buried, where the past came alive and demanded to be acknowledged. And now, I was part of it. The final confession, the last piece of a story that would never end. And just like that, I was no longer just a visitor. I was a part of the story.